Hi, I'm El Ninja Cupcake.
And I'm Haley.
I'm Juraika.
This is Insight Check, where we delve into the dungeon of your bad decisions
To retrieve
the
treasure
treasure
of wisdom.
And today we are happy to introduce another fabulous guest. We have the Scarlet Moth on with us. Welcome.
Yay!
Hello, hello. And you can just call me Moth.
Hey, Moth.
Hello.
glad
I'm very excited to be here. I love the show.
Thanks. You're great too.
We've been very excitedly planning this and shouting about it into our Discord server, so we are very glad to have you.
I think all of us ladies have been super stoked.
Ladies' Night Part 2.
I'm really flattered.
I think that for me, it looks like you have a lot of different interests, especially in the D&D realm. So we're going to get started on some of these topics, but I think that you have a lot to say about a lot of different things. So it's really exciting.
I always have a lot to say.
We would like to hear about all of the things. Should we start with the dungeon crawl?
Yes!
If you sound so enthusiastic, would you like to go first, Juraika?
Sure. So I am working my way through episode 87 of Dice Camera Action. I am a little bit behind, so probably we're getting on towards season 3 finale in current times, but I'm all the way back at 87. But I was so freaking impressed by the role playing that all of the players did for this episode. I believe there were actual tears, and well warranted. Yep, because it was a little bit stressful and a little bit sad, but oh man, it hit me right in the feels. Both Holly's role playing of Strix's sadness, distraughtness, and also obviously Nate's depiction of Paulton's unhappiness at the situation. Diath, as always, is amazing. And then Evelyn has this whole sort of like interesting conversation. And I think that it really, really developed her character a lot, at least going forward. So I loved it so much. And I think it was a huge payoff for the last couple weeks. So yay, DCA.
And I would absolutely have to agree with you there. We've talked about this episode a lot on Waffle Talk, which is the Dice Camera Action after show
that you're a part of, yes.
Yeah, with the amazing Power Score RPG and Flying Shiris, Shauna, who is amazing.
Yes.
And also another Strix cosplayer. But we all agree this episode was pretty amazing, and everything's starting to sort of come together, which is, it's a nice feeling to see in D&D. All those storylines starting to culminate.
Yeah. Right, yep.
I was so upset when the intro music was different.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, they played like a sad sort of melodic song.
It was
oh my gosh.
It was a song that Anna had sung after the events of the previous episode.
Yeah.
And someone had added a backing track to it, so it was just like, oh, okay.
Was it an actual song, or is that something that she had made up?
It was something she had made up because she's a singer and is very good.
Oh.
Like very, very good.
She sung when she was on Ack Int. She sung the song that
the hymn that her and Strix, or her and Holly wrote.
Holly wrote for Strix's past or time in Barovia, and I was like, wow, I did not know you sung. You have a beautiful voice.
Yes, a woman of many talents.
What can't she do?
She is
nothing. She's amazing.
She's amazing.
She is everything.
Clearly a big #goals, a big role model of ours.
I mean, I could sit here and gush about DCA all day if you guys let me.
I'm
Haley,
sure.
did you have an exciting dungeon crawl?
Dungeon crawl? I have two things to talk about. One of them is not games or Dungeons and Dragons related at all, but I think that some of you might enjoy it because you might find it inspiring in your game preparation or other creative endeavors. I have been super into, and maybe a little late to the boat on, the podcast Lore. It is a very cool storytelling depiction of different topics, mainly based around different folklore and stories of various regions. And it's been going on for quite some time now, I think since like 2014, 2015, I think 2015. And it's a bi-weekly podcast, and it also has like an Amazon Prime original TV series and a book. So I really have been enjoying the podcast. I'm a big podcast listener on my commute, and the producer narrator has the most calming voice, and there's some very awesome like ambient piano type soundtracks in the background too. So just the combination of like creepy calm music and like very calm voice but like semi creepy stories, I don't know, it's very interesting to me. And also relaxing. So if you're into maybe spooky stories or folklore or any of those things, or just some of it's really just interesting history, you should definitely check out Lore Podcast. And
do you think it would make good inspiration for perhaps a D&D game?
Yeah, I really think that it could. There's some very interesting and creepy things. One of the ones that I listened to recently, I'm kind of going back and listening to a lot of the older episodes now. And they were talking about like hauntings and poltergeists on this episode, which I cannot remember the name of. I am sorry. But they talked about how there was at the Greyfriars Cemetery in Edinburgh, and apparently some point in the past, one like cold rainy night, a homeless person broke into a mausoleum looking for somewhere warm to sleep and stepped on some like rotted wood and fell through the floor into what they think was like an illegal plague burying ground of like creepily preserved bodies. And then ever since then, lots of people have been like tripped and have fallen or have reported like scratches and bruises on their bodies. I don't know. It was this whole story about how there've been this whole institute was researching all of these things, and then their whole office building burned to the ground. So he talks about that kind of stuff, but I just find it interesting too, because he'll go into some of the actual historical things or some things that have been disproven, like this is actually this natural phenomenon, and then he always ends on like some cliffhanger thing that's hasn't actually been proved. So if you like kind of creepy things or kind of interesting things, you should give it a shot. I hopefully have not done a horrible job describing what this podcast is. I don't feel like I can do it justice. So you should just go listen to an episode. They're usually like 20-30 minutes long, so if you listen to one and you hate it, it's only 20 minutes of your time. But I think you're going to love it.
So you said you had two things. That sounds like just one.
Well, creatures of the future. I am going to just say this because I'm assuming that at this point, when you're listening to this, I will have had a great time at PAX East. Woo! And I will be in recovery mode. Very excited for PAX East. And I expect that this time, in 2 weeks, I will tell you that the AI show was great and Mike DMing was a blast. And that it was great to see Chris and Jerry and everybody at the convention. And also to meet lots of exciting people from the Shadow Council and just the general online Penny Arcade community. Hopefully, if you saw me there, you said hi, and I will have posted some cool pictures from games that I tried during the show. Yay!
And if you see Haley, mention this podcast and get your complimentary insight check hug.
Yay!
Yes, indeed. From the future.
I didn't think about that.
It's okay. Well, if you manage to do this, I will be very impressed.
Yes, indeed. A little creeped out. That'll be on the next episode of Lore.
I'm very excited for you to watch the Acquisitions Inc. game because Mike is an amazing DM. He really is.
Yes.
I was very lucky last PAX Oz to see him DMing the Star Wars themed Acquisitions Inc. game, and it was fantastic.
Oh man,
I am super excited.
he's good at storytelling, just like all of them are. So it's super exciting.
Yeah, and I really loved his Wizard Cart episode, so I'm assuming this
Yes.
chicken dinner episode is going to be great. And we get Holly back with the A-Team, so it's just going to be a blast. Of course, I'll miss Chris Perkins. Who wouldn't miss Chris Perkins? But Mike, I am doubly excited. I'm just excited. I'm always excited. My dream situation would be a convention where I just get to watch lots of different people run Dungeons and Dragons.
But really, what more could you want in life?
Exactly.
Let's be
not
honest.
much more.
Nope.
Is there another dungeon crawl out there?
Do we have any dungeon crawls?
It was the mid-season finale for the C-Team.
Oh, yes.
Don't spoil me. I haven't watched it yet.
I actually watched it live.
No. How
I had to go out to dinner last night.
to do a dungeon crawl? Let me see if I can make this titillating.
I actually got to watch it.
It was, yes. If you haven't watched it or listened to it, you need to absolutely do that. You've got 2-3 weeks to...
I'm stretching it out. I'm savoring it.
Well, I'm very excited because they have all sorts of during the break content.
Yes,
they have
including
a nurse normal who we adore.
Yeah.
A nurse comic. And also a podcast that they have recorded.
They recorded it last night.
After the show, so we will get to feast upon that. So yeah, should be very exciting, and I can't wait until we see them back in the surface realms we have been promised.
And I want to know who the body was.
it was me.
I'm gonna leave that there.
It was you. How did you end up in the C-Team as a body, and you're also here?
Yes, yeah, it's those storylines can get a little convoluted sometimes.
I know, you're very clever.
Yeah.
Multi-dimensional Jerica.
And I'm your DM, Jerica.
Well, sometimes on this show, we answer questions. This might maybe be one of those times.
Perhaps. Do we feel like answering questions? Maybe we can just eat chocolate instead.
We could eat chocolate, or we can just discuss some content about what do we think, ladies?
Why not both?
Why?
We can do that too.
Why not both?
Why not a long rest?
Yeah.
Why not?
Longer? So, if you have listened to our show in the past couple weeks, we've been debuting this new segment called Roll Call or Roll Call.
I sounded the horn.
The roll call horn. Awesome. I'm here. I'm present. Okay, cool. So today, so that we can take as much advantage as we can while we have Moth in our clutches, we will talk about tieflings. How does that sound?
Oh, I'm always up for tiefling talk.
Yes.
We're gonna teef it out.
Yeah.
Well,
Sink some teeth into this conversation.
Oh, so good! I was trying so
I
hard
love
to
these
think
puns.
of one.
Oh
I was
my
like,
gosh.
gotta do a pun.
Puns,
Gotta
yes.
do a pun. Can't
That's
think
what-
of any puns.
I'm just trying to make Mazmataz proud right now.
It's good.
You're doing it. It's cool.
Maz, your spirit remains with us.
And Embers has directed me to welcome this segment as if it were an NPR show.
Oh yes, hang on.
Haley
Can I do my
Yes.
NPR voice? Welcome to... Nope, it was already bad. I was already too excited about it. I'm too excited about the segment. All right.
Take it down a notch, Haley. Too much.
And welcome to this segment of Tiefling Talk.
Oh, perfect.
Yes. Welcome to... Nope, still too excited. I'm too excited about tieflings.
Ninja.
You did it great.
Cupcake has you covered.
That's because I'm lame, so we're good.
Welcome.
I can be an old fart for a while.
Welcome to Tiefling Talk.
Do we have a question?
Insight check. You are caller Scarlet Moth.
So do we?
I'm
have
Australian, and I don't know how I rang up to this channel.
We called you in an exciting twist. What drew you to tieflings? What about them really just like speaks to you? What do you love so much about them?
I suppose I need to give a bit of history behind this as well. I love tieflings dating back from 2nd edition, where they were mainly a part of the Planescape setting, and they were such a diverse type of race. So nowadays, tieflings, it's because of 4th edition, were sort of supposed to be descendants from Asmodeus, or you had someone in the Nine Hells who was your ancestor or parent or something. But back in Planescape, it was you're the descendant of anything from any of the lower planes, so Gehenna, or the Grey Wastes, or the Abyss, any of those. And you can just see how diverse they are in that setting. I mean, back in Planescape, you could roll up on a chart for what your tiefling looked like, what characteristics they had, what kind of abilities they had, and it was all just so different, which I adore. But I like playing this sort of outcast. Or tieflings in the Forgotten Realms are kind of shunned because they are demonic or fiendish. But I like being able to play off of that.
So there's like an expectation that maybe a tiefling isn't gonna be, above board all the time because they have this sort of questionable background.
And I find that you can work tieflings in, and you can change how they are. Like, there's no saying of, like, this is how you were born a tiefling, this is how you are. A lot of my characters either discovered that they were tieflings after puberty and they started, like, growing their fiendish features, or one of my characters who I play in Power Score's Tomb of Annihilation game is actually was attacked by something from the Abyss, and after that encounter woke up and found that she had been changed into a tiefling. So it's something that you can play around with, and I encourage people to play around with it because I find that the 4th edition and 5th edition tieflings were kind of boring with just the one background. But I mean, in 5th edition you have so much that you can work with, and like tieflings, there's so much you can do with them. They don't just have to be red skin.
I think it's really interesting that you bring up the idea that maybe tiefling is the qualities of the tiefling parts come out later, like you said, maybe this is sort of like a change that happens at puberty, and then it's like, it's all that like, why me, and like wrestling, I think, with the nature of the character, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, and that's the case with one of my many tiefling characters, Avelina, who I play in a Horde of the Dragon Queen campaign. She was a noble, and it was only during puberty that she started like growing horns and her skin started changing colour, and she was locked up because of it by her parents because they wanted to hide a shameful family secret.
And that immediately becomes like a metaphor for things that are going on in the real world. Which you can engage with in your game or not,
My DM for that game has been really great in sort of letting me play around with this internal conflict that Avelina has of she wants to show that she's a good person, but also sometimes the world is not kind, and sometimes she has to be the monster people say she is. But then again, some of my other tiefling characters completely ignore the fact that they are tieflings, and they're just happy-go-lucky, and like my shadow sorcerer Valiant, who was the one who was changed into a tiefling. She's got these dark powers, and like she looks really scary, but she is happy, always making jokes, and just wants to party, just wants adventures.
Okay, so just for my own edification, is there a certain color or color range that you seem to gravitate towards for your tieflings?
So I tend away from the red range, just because that's very typical and it's a bit cliche. Though, not saying there's anything wrong with making your tieflings red, just go for it. Just taste that rainbow. Taste the rainbow of tieflings.
I love it. Is there one that you prefer specifically?
I really like purples and blues.
So do you have any strong feelings for Molly Mock?
Yeah,
and Jester, too.
I'm a big fan of the Critical Role tieflings in Season 2, just because
they have fabulous looks.
I'm loving
they've got
Jester.
fabulous looks. They've gone for the less common skin tones, which I love, and it just works. In the words of Todd Howard, it just works.
I have to say, when you mention sort of happy-go-lucky tieflings and the one that has maybe more of a grim exterior, but the personality sort of is completely different. I really enjoy, Dragons in Places I have a lot of thoughts about, but I really, really enjoy Alba as a character. I think she's amazing. Played by Holly Conrad. I just love the idea of, and this is me, but a tiefling druid. Like, it just came together so beautifully, and Alba's, she's a lover of the animals and also a tiefling, and I think it kind of brings those two things together really well.
Yeah, I love the more unconventional race-class combos. I find it can be so much fun to just play around with it and find something, just an idea which works, which is unique and which is fun to play.
If you were to make a tiefling right now,
oh,
on the spot, what class would you be excited to pair with that?
Well, lots of people usually tend towards the charisma-based classes.
Because tieflings get a +2?
A +2.
To their charisma?
+2 to charisma, and then +1 to intelligence, I believe. But though that will actually be able to change with the upcoming Mordenkainen's.
Yeah.
The racial variants, which I'm very excited about.
Mordenkainen's. Okay. I just had to break out the robot voice for a minute.
Yes.
I think that there's a lot of potential with bards. I know that is charisma based, but you've got all these different subclasses and they're so different to one another. I've recently just made a tiefling College of Whispers bard, which I'm really excited about playing. And that's also another character who has a sort of appearance which betrays how she is. She's very childlike in her appearance and very sweet, but she'll ruin your family and leave you destitute. But I think an interesting class for a tiefling would actually be maybe a cleric or a paladin.
Yeah.
I could do a tiefling cleric.
That's playing into the whole, you're a fiendish creature, but you're maybe serving a good god, or maybe you've got a divine mission.
It's almost like two extremes in a way. And I could see something about, maybe your family wanted to somehow save your soul and they, kind of forced you into this path. I mean, that's just one idea, but I could see that sort of almost duality playing out in different ways.
I think so, definitely. And it would be really interesting to see tieflings who were serving gods who were opposed to Asmodeus or enemies of the Nine Hells, and seeing how that duality played out. But then again, you don't need to make everything doom and gloom.
Indeed.
Just have a tiefling who's a cleric to Lyra, or one of the prankster gods.
Oh, that could be fun.
Even like a tiefling who is almost context oblivious, where they don't know what a tiefling means to other people, so they're just hey, friend. Almost a Cthulhu Straub approach. Everyone is a potential friend.
I love the overly friendly characters who don't get the context. They're not in on the joke.
I think
to say.
It's why does no one want to be my friend? I would like to be your friend. Let's be friends.
That's going to be on Haley's biography, probably.
That's pretty much the story of my life. Why don't you want to be my friend? I would like to be your friend.
Big mood.
Be friends with
big
me.
mood.
I thought we were friends.
We are friends. At least I think we're friends.
So
I don't want to take up. I don't want to take up all the questions.
Is it because I
There's
ruined
more
the
questions
cake?
here, but I just thought that those were good questions.
no, I got one that kind of ties into that actually. So it's really cool with the tiefling to pick those juxtaposition classes and be able to RP that. I think there's definitely a treasure there to be found.
For sure.
But when it comes to, say, players that want to min-max, you did mention the charisma type classes. I find that when I'm playing certain classes, it is almost easier to... I'm sorry, when I play certain races, it's almost easier to play them in certain classes. So if there's somebody that wants to play a tiefling, what do you think are some easy... right? What do you think are some easy classes initially to direct them towards? And as a secondary question to that, while they're playing tieflings, do you have any voices or accents that they might consider?
Ooh. Well, first off, you'll probably want to go with a class like Bard or Sorcerer or Warlock. Warlock, I would say it's good if you want a multi-class as well. Warlock is a fantastic multi-class class because you get all the invocations and you can restock your spells with a short rest instead of a long rest. But some of it is a bit more complex than the other classes. It has its own idiosyncrasies which are a bit weird. But yeah, any of the charisma-based classes, I guess even Paladin, you could say, because I believe Paladin uses charisma as a spell casting modifier. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think it does.
It does.
And that would explain why Evelyn's charisma is so high as well. So you could definitely go with a tiefling paladin, because I think that's a fantastic race class combination.
Do you have any deities that you would suggest? You just did, but Ilmater might be a weird choice.
I think it would all depend on what kind of character your tiefling is. Definitely going for some of the interplanar deities, or looking at even some real-world deities, like in the Celtic pantheon or the Norse pantheon, because those are actually a part of the setting in settings like Planescape. You could go for... If you're more of a jovial paladin, perhaps you could make your paladin a paladin to Oladamara, who is the patron of pranksters and thieves and rogues, and is always messing with the other gods.
That could be really fun.
That would actually be a really great idea to have a puck-themed paladin or tiefling.
Yeah, as always, if you decide to play a puck-style tiefling paladin, please tag us at Inside Check Pod and let us know how that goes.
Invite Tech Pod.
At Insight Check Pod. That's our Twitter handle because Insight Check was already taken.
Yep. I also big reveal. The first D&D character I ever played, I played in 3.5, and it was a satyr.
Ooh.
And yes, and I feel like there's things about satyrs and things about tieflings that I personally think resonate really well. So I think it would be really cool to play almost like a trickster tiefling that maybe gets some power from nature or something.
Oh, one option for that is to go with a Fey Pact Warlock. When people think of Warlock, I usually think Demonic Pact or the Great Old Ones and having fire or tentacles or something really dark. But Fey Pact is a really good option if you want something more in tune with nature or a bit more of a prankster.
Could be really, really fun. I'm starting to get super excited.
Maybe we should just have a tieflings only day on the F list.
Would like to have a tiefling day.
Yay!
Every day is tiefling day when you're around me. Just saying.
I also would like Genasi Day, but that's just me.
Ooh, there's so many options there, too.
See, I love all the plane touched races, so that's another thing dating back from Planescape, which is very dear to my heart, having like the Genasi or the Tieflings or even the Asimar and the Baraya, who are all a bit different. They're half races that are a bit more outcasts, or maybe even looked up to by some cultures, and there's so much you can do with that. That's why I like these races. There is so much you can do with that. It's not just a straightforward thing. And perhaps if you want an idea for your Fey-packed Tiefling Warlock, perhaps you could say that... have you ever heard of the folklore about changelings? Yeah. This... Not even D&D changelings, but real-world changelings. Because in like Old English and Scottish folklore, people would often leave their babies out if they thought that they were a changeling.
They put them in trees in the wood.
And they would think that... Yeah, they would think that the fairies would come and swap them.
Also some other horrible things, which... Yeah.
And some very horrible things. But you can always take inspiration from real-world folklore and fairy tales and say perhaps that your tiefling was left in the woods because their parents thought they were a changeling, and a powerful fae or an archfey took pity on them and brought them up as their own.
I know what Cupcake's next character is going to be. I have in my pocket here one more question, probably not the last one. What's something about Tieflings, Moth, that you only learned after playing them for a while?
Oh yes, there is one, which is with one of their racial abilities. For the normal Tieflings, you get Hellish Rebuke. I found out only after several boss encounters, and in one of which my character died, that it's actually cast at second level, not first level, so you roll 3d10 instead of 2d10.
Yep.
And it would have been really great to know.
That's good to keep in mind, definitely.
Yes, it's very important because a lot of people will think that it's cast at the base level, but racially you get to cast it at second level.
That sounds like a good Tief
very
crit.
Important.
Tief crit. I can't say it right.
A critillating fact. Oh, I think you were also asking about accents. I have a sort of very soft Australian accent, so most people here would say that it's a bit more English than it is Australian, but I would say that an interesting accent for a Tiefling would probably be like a Celtic accent. Or even try for things which are outside the norm, because that makes your characters memorable. I can do Celtic accents, but
I'm a Tiefling,
not very well.
I'm going to come out of the woods.
I was going to say, I'll just sound like I'm from Minnesota if I try. It's really the only...
Oh gosh.
I mean, you could, if you have like a Tiefling rogue or something, you could try a New York accent.
I'm from Brooklyn.
Hey.
Hey, you got some jink.
I don't do accents.
Oh god.
I'm walking here.
Or you could do the nanny. I don't know if I can do her on command, but that would be an interesting Tiefling accent.
The nanny?
I'm a Tiefling. Anyway.
Oh my god.
So
amazing.
So maybe are you not a big accent person when it comes to RPing a character?
RPing, like I'll change my voice slightly. Like for my noble Tiefling, she'll usually talk with a bit more enunciation with her words, and I'll try to make my voice sound a little bit more British, a little bit more noble. With Val, who's the happy-go-lucky sorcerer, she just talks with a lot of puns. So I try to adjust my voice slightly without going full-on accent, and after a while, that sort of just comes to you naturally if you've been playing a character for a while, because you sort of have that spot in the back of your head where that character exists, and they, like for me, they sort of, it's just they start talking instead of me. It's a funny little thing. I did try a Celtic accent for a one-shot I did on the Greyhawk channel, and it was very up and down, but I didn't have to do it all the time because it was a druid, and she was in bear form half the time, so I just had to make bear noises.
That might be the ideal situation for me in my not liking to do accents, is I can just be a druid and just make cat noises the whole time. That would be me. When in doubt, be a bear.
Just be a druid.
I'll just become the party's house cat. That's really what would actually happen, is I would demand to be carried.
See, I don't think I could ever play a druid, because every time I would just want to go into, like, a weasel form, and I would just start talking with the Italian accent.
We have
We're gonna
two
kick his
options.
ass.
That was one of my favorite episodes.
It's also my favorite Z animation, is the animation of that.
Yes. I just thank every day for Amy T. Falcone for doing a very non-traditional druid.
I think it's Falcon
Every day.
Oh my God.
The Falcon Appreciation Day.
I think it's actually, like, the C team's a very good place to look for, like, non-traditional versions of a race or a class, because I feel like none of them really fit into, like, a prescribed box of what you might expect them to be in terms of, like, what you would expect from high fantasy. Like, what does a high fantasy druid look like? Or what does a high fantasy paladin look like? And I think that just, like, kind of reminds you to think about what you want your character's personality to be, and then pick what suits them, as opposed to, like, what is a druid, and then let me build something all around what a druid is.
And I find that that's probably the best way to make characters in general, not just tieflings, is you maybe have a certain idea or even, like, a gimmick that you want to use, then build a character around that. For a non-tiefling character that I do have, I have a half-drow who is scared of the dark. So I sort of made her story as she grew up on the surface, because her mother was a follower of one of the shunned drow gods, and she grew up there, and then after a while she got warlock powers for the Undying Light Warlock Pact, which is an Unearthed Arcana one. And so you sort of take an idea and you build the rest around that. That's the exact same with Val, my tiefling. I wanted a shadow sorcerer who had a sunny disposition.
I would say the gimmick that I'm on right now is my Eladrin druid, who is a sort of like a conjure focus, sort of. But, like, she has issues with the fact that conjured animals are fey creatures, and that they, like, are sent to die, basically, and they're made of the same stuff that she is. Like, I just like that interaction, and so I want to kind of, like, explore that through that being's eyes.
That's a fantastic idea.
I'm so glad I impressed you. Like, that was what I was hoping for.
I love characters I love the non-traditional characters, or characters that are built off an idea or a gimmick or something.
A triangle, perhaps. Someone who likes playing the triangle.
Triangle.
Ding ding.
Yeah,
no ding
ding
without the wedding ring.
Oh, my word.
Ooh, goodness.
So, Moth, a little bit of a selfish question here. When it comes to cosplay, is it very different to cosplay a tiefling versus, say, an elf? Do you have any tips when it comes to that kind of stuff?
From experience with face paint, find a water-based one, because it will be a lot easier to take off, but also it's easier to seal and put on. And make sure you know if you have any skin allergies.
What do you use to seal your makeup with?
I use, I think it's a Krylon.
I'm a huge Krylon fan. That's what I used for my Fanas. I used Krylon water-based paint, and then a setting. Yeah, it was wonderful.
Their water-based is really good. I also, with face paints, I use Grimus, which is a Dutch brand, and that I find that even though that's water-based, it stays on really well because it's a theatre makeup. For American listeners, I know that Ben Nye is also a good option. I actually learned a lot I came prepared when I started being interested in tieflings, because I used to do Homestuck cosplay. That's how I actually got into cosplay. So it meant that I already knew how to make horns, already knew all about face paint, and already knew that you have to seal that shit.
You heard it here, folks.
Seal your makeup.
Seal your face paint and wear arm socks or gloves if you can, because no one likes painting their fingers.
I can tell you
Todrick
this.
Hall, we see you, but oh boy.
Also, a good tip for sealing your face paint is to use like a coloured powder and put that over the top before you actually use your setting spray, because that sort of helps keep the water-based face paint from
that makes sense.
melting off. If you live in a hotter climate, don't use face paints which contain paraffin wax, because they will just melt off. So don't use stuff like Snazaroo, because that will just melt off. And if you have skin allergies like me, it left my skin looking like it had been burnt. So
Sounds like that was a painful lesson to learn.
yes, it was not fun, but like once you find something that works for you, it's worth all the trial and error.
I never thought about wax-based makeup just melting off. I've used wax-based makeup not for cosplay but for dance, because it stays on pretty well when you're sweating from dancing, but definitely not like in a hot environment for like prolonged periods of time. You're more just like doing your dance performance and then coming off, and the wax makes you not look like you're sweating. Probably because it just clogs up all your pores so that you can't really sweat, but it keeps your face looking nice.
That's why lots of theatre makeup doesn't have wax in it, because under stage lights it just melts.
Krylon does have like a wax-based line, and I've used their like human skin colored wax-based makeup for dance, but I used their water-based stuff for the cosplay, and I almost got the wax-based, so I'm glad that I didn't.
And I find that it looks a bit nicer.
Interesting.
So shall we move on from the Tieflings and talk a little bit more about our common interests that we share with Moth?
I'm happy to discuss whatever you want.
Tell me about the Waffle Fam. What are the 3 words you would use to describe?
Only 3 words, though.
And the Waffle Fam, for those of you who don't know, is the fans of Dice Camera Action. The crew is the Waffle Crew, so that's the characters and all of their friends in the show. The Waffle Fam are their fans, like me.
3 words to describe them. Passionate. Generous, caring.
It's a good fandom to be a part of.
It really is. I haven't really encountered any like them. Probably the closest one I've seen is probably the C-Team fan base and the Shadow Council. But I find that you don't see much negativity in this fan base, and people actually do care about you and care for each other. The cast as well, they're the cast of the show, but they're also fans of the show, and that's the same for a lot of guests, and they interact with the Waffle Fam and with the fan base, and it does feel like a family. It feels like a proper community, because you're all interacting and building off of each other and helping each other.
I've gotten the impression that the Reddit is pretty lively for Dice Camera Action, and that the cast interacts a lot on there.
Yeah, the cast, they write their own stories about their characters, they all make their own art, or it's nice to see players who are constantly thinking about their characters. Mm-hmm. I think that's something that any DM would wish for, honestly. And as well as just the Reddit, just the Twitter community is really active, and the Waffle Fam has taken a lot of initiative just by themselves to like help foster this community by making their own Discord or starting up games based on or inspired by the adventures of the Waffle Crew, and just all the art and different writing and creations that come out of it. I'm just always blown away by it.
Can you tell me a little bit more about Waffle Talk and how that came about?
Yeah, so I've known Sean, or Power Score, for a while. since last year when I started playing in his games, because I had been reading his Dice Camera Action recaps and had been interacting with him. After a while, he came to Flying Shiras and I and asked, because he DMs for both of us and knows that we're both like artists and fans of the Waffle Crew, if we wanted to help him out with an after show in the style of like Throne Talk or similar after shows where you discuss theories or interview people. And because we were so involved in the community, Shauna and I we jumped at the opportunity, and we didn't know that this was going to be on the D&D channel either. We thought that this was just something that we would do, and then Sean said that he had approached Greg Tito and some of the people at Wizards of the Coast about actually hosting it on the D&D channel. And I didn't even know if this show was going to be successful, but if people would want to watch a bunch of us nerds just talk about the show. But another testament to them is that the community really jumped behind us, and they really helped the show to grow, and they're always asking questions, they're always so thoughtful and always thinking, and they're helping us, which is just, I don't even have words for it. It's amazing, and I never thought that I would be on the D&D channel or even be able to be a part of such an amazing experience.
I've definitely enjoyed the Waffle Talks that I've seen, and I definitely encourage anyone who listens to us to partake in that, and of course DCA as well. I know I'm just so in awe of the Waffle Fam group, because you're always doing so much cool stuff, including Dice Camera Zine. Is that what it's called? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So, I just want to preface this a little bit.
I think that some of these initiatives are things that a lot of other D&D shows could get involved in. I think they're really good models for how fans can participate and how community can be grown and fostered and appreciated. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. Anyway,
I'd seen like other community zines and stuff before, mainly stuff being done for charity, and I thought, we have such an artistic and creative community that I wanted to help and try to make a zine for us, which would... So there is a zine which we're not making any profit from. We're donating all of the money that we make from sales of it to a Child's Play charity, which is the Penny Arcade charity.
Yep.
But I wanted it to be both for charity and a celebration of the community. When I decided that I was going to make the zine, I approached some of my friends like Maz and Taz and Shauna and Kayla Klein and said, do you think this is a good idea? And they were all supportive of it. That we just decided, going to open up some applications. We're not just going to take artists, we're going to take writers, and we're going to take people who create things like jewelry makers or cosplayers, crafters, and we're also going to take people who make homebrew content, because it is a D&D show and that is a part of the community as well. So I didn't expect the number of applicants we had. We had over 100 by the end, and
oh my goodness.
Wow.
The majority of which were in the Waffle Crew fandom. We did have a few people who had just started out with D&D, or who had just started out with the show who applied, and who are now a part of the community and even playing in their own games based on the Waffle Crew now.
Nice.
Which is... I never expected any of this to happen. So we've got, I think it's about 70 creators.
Wow.
That's including artists, homebrew content creators, writers, even a songwriter we have.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and we have people who are like knitting or stitching or making or doing metal work even, which is going to be photographed and put in the zine. because it's
That's
a celebration
so
of
cool.
That's cool.
it's just a celebration of the variety of and creativity of this community, and that's just half the reason for the zine.
That sounds so cool.
And we're hopefully going to be releasing it before PAX West. My ideal release date would be in, I think it's August 25th, which is International Waffle Day.
Nice. Very good branding. I like your style.
ABB. Always be branding.
Yes, indeed.
Oh,
Wise words of Omen Dran.
I love it. So I'm really excited about the conversation we just had. Do other people want to talk about more cosplay? I would love to hear about more cosplay.
Well, I'm always happy. I'm happy to talk about cosplay.
Yeah, are you working on anything right now?
Yeah, so I have had a few health issues which have impeded things recently, but like with the support of the Waffle fam and of my online family, they've really helped me get back into that. So I'm starting working on a few different outfits. Hopefully some of them might be able to come to PAX West, because I'm currently working towards saving up to get over there. I'm working on Arabeth from Neverwinter Nights, which
this
has just
the brocade one?
That's not the brocade one. That one is actually, for once, a not D&D related one. The brocade is for Lady Maria from Bloodborne, which is a game I love the aesthetic of. I'm awful at it, but I love the game. Probably one of the few non-D&D related cosplays I've got on at the moment, just because last year I realised I only did one non-D&D cosplay, and the rest were all like Critical Role, or D&D video games, or Dice Camera Action. It's taken over my life, but I'm happy about it. I don't mind.
You wouldn't turn back, would you?
No.
No. There's no option at this point.
No regrets.
Cosplay becomes an addiction.
It really does. And D&D as well.
Absolutely.
For a while there were I've been cosplaying for 4 or 5 years now, but there was a time where I was sort of starting to feel fatigued by it and not as passionate about it anymore. But D&D sort of revived that passion for me, and I was able to start creating costumes for characters who I really do care about. And that's not just in online games, but also in like D&D video games, because I've done a few cosplays from Planescape Torment and planning a few from other games now as well.
The inspiration never ends.
It never ends, and now I'm just looking at my cosplay list going, oh, how am I going to do all of these this year? I'm going to have to pick and choose.
Pick and choose things.
Because there's cosplays I want to do, like a dream cosplay of mine would be the Lady of Pain.
Ooh, I would love to see you in the Lady of Pain.
And I was very lucky that TK Johnson, or TK Joins the Fray on Twitter, who I actually met them because of my Planescape Torment cosplays, and now they are one of my best friends.
Oh,
That's awesome.
They were able to find the 360 turnaround of the model they used in Planescape Torment, which I was not able to find online anywhere beforehand, so that actually helped give me a push to say, you need to make this.
There you go.
And I am 6 foot, so with some platforms I can be a very tall, spiky lady.
Very tall.
I wait for the day. I wait and I watch. My watch has not ended.
I would say you're going to see one type of power cosplay, so cosplay of a sort of deity at PAX West.
Nice.
If I'm able to make it. It's either going to be Lady of Pain or Zugdemoy.
Either one of those, I
Either
would
one.
definitely be hype about.
That's awesome.
And I mean, I've got so many on the list, and it's just like, oh god, they're all so amazing. I want to do them all. Like, I've wanted to do Evelyn for a while, and now I want to do her construct body.
Yeah.
You look so good in that blonde wig.
That
Oh
blonde
my
wig.
goodness.
Oh my goodness. Such a good wig.
I'm not used to being blonde, and I'm not used to not having a fringe. So it was a difference.
And when you say
Look for me.
fringe, you mean bangs,
Bangs.
right?
Yeah. I mean bangs for all the
Us uncultured
non-Australians,
Americans.
Or the Americans.
Americans.
Yes.
We call them bangs
Oh,
here.
I'm so hype about all of these ideas and about your passion and your creativity, and I'm sure you're going to bring it together. Have you been inspired by Danny Hartel's streams where she is doing a warlock who follows Zugdmoy with a lot of mushroom action going on?
Danny is a huge inspiration for me, and seeing her and Holly's goblins on the stream of Annihilation helped cement the fact that, people are actually interested in this, and people actually want to see stuff like this. And Danny and I use a lot of similar techniques, like with felting, which is something I got into 1.5 years ago, and I'm still learning and teaching myself. And Danny is just an amazing inspiration because she's showing that you can use all these different techniques and you can teach yourself without having to go on an expensive course or have education, that you can do amazing things and teach yourself and inspire other people doing it.
Yes, indeed. Does anybody else have any questions for Moth before we wrap it up?
I would have one general D&D question that I like to ask people. If you had any advice, if you could give one piece of advice to either players or DMs or both, what would that piece of advice be? This is your platform for your advice.
For players, it may not always be the best decision, but if it's in character, go with it. Do something which is going to make the story fun and make it more interesting.
I love it.
And for DMs, just go with it. Just wing it.
Nice.
You can't always plan for what your players are going to do. You can never plan for what your players are going to do. Let's be honest.
Yep.
And they're always going to do something or kill an important NPC or mess up your plans somehow. So just go with it and be prepared for change.
I like that. I like that advice. I think it is hard for players sometimes to do the thing their character would do if it's not in the best interests of
It's really hard.
Especially if you've played a lot of video games and you have that winning the game mindset, let's win D&D. I was trying to explain this to a friend of mine. They were like, so how do you win? I was like, well, it's not really that. There's not really
you have fun.
a winning.
You lose.
Yeah. Or
you lose.
How long does a game take? I'm like, as long as you would like. Maybe forever. So it's a very different kind of mindset from, I think, what a lot of people are used to.
And again, watching online games like Dice Camera Action or C-Team is a great way to show that you don't always need to make the optimal choices, but you can make choices which will make the game more interesting. Strix certainly isn't an optimized character and certainly does not make decisions which are in the best interest for the party, but it makes it so much more interesting.
#suboptimal.
I find that suboptimal choices.
Sometimes the suboptimal choice is the best choice.
And I think that people this is another piece of advice, watch online D&D games. Watch ones like the C-Team, ones like the Waffle Crew. I would say especially the Waffle Crew for people who are playing via Roll20 or playing online only, because it can show you that you don't need a map, you don't need all this fancy equipment or minis or any of that. At the end of the day, it's just a shared storytelling experience, and you're telling a story together with the DM.
Yes.
Nice.
I love it. Alrighty, so it has been a pleasure talking to you, Moth, and we're so glad that you're a fan of the show and that you came on today to talk to us. It's really just awesome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for imparting wisdom upon us and our listeners.
Just thank you for letting me ramble about tieflings for half an hour.
Yes. If people have more tiefling questions or want to see your artwork or your cosplay or any of these things, where can they find you?
So, I'm most active on Twitter. So my Twitter is @thatscarletmoth, because someone took the username Scarlet Moth and haven't ever tweeted.
That's how Inside Check was.
Yeah.
Shenanigans.
But if you want to see a portfolio of my work, which is a bit less about me rambling about D&D and games most of the time, then you can go to scarletmoth.weebly.com, which is my online portfolio of art and cosplay, which I'm always updating and adding new stuff to. And you can also check out at Dice Camera Zine on Twitter if you want to see more stuff about the Dice Camera Action Zine, because we've got the deadline coming up, which by the time this podcast comes out is probably going to be past. So all the artists will have gotten their work in, and we're going to start announcing merchandise and some special pre-order bonuses, which I'm really excited about.
Cool.
Nice.
Super exciting stuff.
I believe that I did announce some stuff the other day. You can expect a special pre-order bonus from Kayla Klein, a special little comic, which is written by TK Joins the Fray. And if you are a fan of Trapped in the Birdcage, or just a fan of Planescape style art, then you have to see this comic. It's going to be amazing. And sad. Because it's DCA. And it's always sad.
It's always sad. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Insight Check. We are hoping that you are feeling more insightful now. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, please visit us at Insight Check Pod. Tweet any questions that you might want to have answered, because sometimes we do answer your questions. Also, please go to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review and write a comment, no matter whether you liked this episode or not. I can't do it.
If you don't leave a 5-star review, I'm going to come to your house and cry.
The Lady of Pain will come to your house.
Yes.
We will now just threaten our listeners. No, actually, we love you all. Thank you for your support. It means a lot to us to see those download numbers. Thank you for sticking with us for all of this time and continue to listen to us. As always, thank you as well to Vinswept for our intro and outro music, and to Amy T. Falcone for our cute chibi faces and logo.
Answering your cues from our collective A's. This
was
Insight
Check.
Yay! We did it on the first try. Ow.
No.
It's fine. Just punched a lamp. Everything's
Might
good.
be time to go.
Did the lamp punch you back though? Was it a mimic?
No, it didn't, luckily. It is made of glass, so it could have been bad, but it was okay. It just made a scary glass noise, and I thought
What do you think that roll was? Do you think that was an 11 or a...
If it was an attack roll,
6?
it was like a 3.
2.
It did more damage to me than the lamp.
Cool. Anybody want to take us out?
I can take us out if you would like.
Knock me out.
I'll punch you like the lamp. And
punch me like your French lamps.
Oh no. Maybe that will be the Easter egg. Anyway.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Take me out. Take me out like how Jerry took out all those vampires.
Oh, vampires in quotes. All right.
Take a deep breath.
This is what happens when you drink a bottle of plum wine and punch a lamp before you do a podcast.
Yeah, it's not good.
#Haley Life.